Hey, everybody. Welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either. Somebody that I love dearly recently said that fear is the tool of a tyrant, and she's right. But I'm not afraid, and I hope you're not either. I hope instead you are engaged, you are paying attention, and you will vote like your beloved country depends upon it, which it does. My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial and keep the faith.
That was former FBI Director James Comey commenting on his indictment by the federal government yesterday. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We also have Katie Phang on the program with us today. We'll chat with Katie shortly. But first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please rate and review and follow or subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. All right, so let's get right into our big things of the week. James Comey, target of Donald Trump for retribution, indicted yesterday on 2 counts. One of them is lying to Congress. The other is obstruction of a congressional hearing. The charges involved whether he authorized his former deputy, Andrew McCabe, to leak information about the Hillary Clinton investigation to the New York Times, and whether he lied to Congress about it in his 2020 testimony, where he also was accused of misleading lawmakers about the Russia investigation. The 5-year statute of limitations on the latter was set to expire this coming Tuesday. And Trump's U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Lindsay Halligan, who he named to head the office after Eric Seibert was forced out last week when he refused to bring charges against Letitia James and Comey and Adam Schiff and anyone else who Trump has demanded to be prosecuted. He didn't think there was enough evidence to bring to a grand jury. Trump replaced him with Halligan, who has zero experience prosecuting cases. Seibert has prosecuted about 660 cases. She's prosecuted 0. She was previously an insurance lawyer who Trump plucked out of obscurity to put on his White House staff secretary's office. She also served as a personal lawyer for Donald Trump. She's also a former beauty pageant winner, but she had never prosecuted a single case in her career. Now she heads up one of the most critically important and busy prosecutorial offices in the country. So she could not find any career prosecutor in the office to take the case to the grand jury. She did it herself. Now think about that. With her lack of experience, she's the one that brought it to the grand jury in a bare bones 2-page indictment with no specifics. She couldn't get anybody in the office to sign it. She's the only signatory. She brought 3 charges. Only 2 are in this indictment. The other one, which is a second false statement charge, was rejected by the grand jury, which is kind of rare. That doesn't really, even the judge said, this doesn't happen. But this is really important for people to understand. There's that old expression, a prosecutor can get a ham sandwich indicted. All you need is probable cause. That's it. That is a big leap from probable cause to getting a conviction based on evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. So a lot of people are saying this is just performative bullshit. It's intimidation. It's to scare people. It's to scare the next person who either speaks out about Donald Trump or who acts as a whistleblower, which doesn't minimize the impact to these people at all. I mean, this is very costly from a financial standpoint to defend yourself in court. There's an enormous emotional and even physical toll that being in a prosecution like this involves. Also, this entire case that's being brought against James Comey was already thoroughly investigated by the Department of Justice's Inspector General, John Durham. And he could find no evidence of any wrongdoing by Comey. So this is a true travesty of justice, but it's a really bad day and it's a sad day for America.
Well, I think that Trump is on a mission to create a false historical narrative about everything that he's done in his life. This is why he's recently talked about going to heaven. He's talked about winning the Nobel Prize. He wants history to depict what he believes to be true in his addled brain. And so prosecuting Comey is part of that because he's so anti-Russiagate, as he calls it, that if he could get something on the record that Comey was convicted, obviously we all agree here, and everyone who studies this, that he's not going to get convicted. But I think Trump will settle for just indicting at the very least so that he can point to this and say, Russiagate, Russiagate, Russiagate.
You know, it's interesting. Last weekend, he put out that now infamous Truth Social post to Attorney General Pam Bondi, literally demanding that she pursue prosecutions. And after the indictment, Trump praised the move in a post with all caps, "Justice in America." Earlier in the day, he claimed he had nothing to do with it. Let's play this clip.
We have very professional people headed up by the Attorney General and Todd Blanche and Lindsay Halligan, who's very smart, good lawyer, very good lawyer. They're going to make a determination. I'm not making that determination. I think I'd be allowed to get involved if I want, but I don't really choose to do so. I can only say that Comey's a bad person. He's a sick person. I think he's a sick guy, actually. He did terrible things at the FBI. And but I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen.
I think you do.
I had nothing to do with it, except everything.
I mean, come on. You put out the post, right? You demanded that Comey be prosecuted. But here's the thing that's really important. He just made a martyr out of Jim Comey. If there isn't a bigger symbol for the left and independence, and dare I say moderate Republicans, a symbol of democracy, of the rule of law, of free speech, of everything we've been talking about these past 8 or 9 months. He's now the poster boy for all of that. And there's no case here. They're not going to win anything. I'm not a lawyer, but I know enough about the law that there's this little thing called a motion to dismiss, and it's based on frivolity and bogus claims, and judges don't like that shit. They don't like when you walk into their courtroom and say, "Your Honor, I've got nothing except this stupid little piece of paper. Can you please help me convict this guy?" That's not how it works. Judge looks at it, and we've seen this before. We've seen this before in a lot of cases this year so far involving Trump, where the judges get angry and start lambasting the attorneys for Donald Trump. Like, how dare you walk into my courtroom with this shit? I think we're going to see that again.
Although I agree with you in terms of theory, I can't imagine that he's actually going to be a martyr for the left because he supremely rat fucked Hillary Clinton, and
Whoa!
Well,
Agree.
I'm just calling it. I'm just calling it like I see it.
Great term, by the way. I haven't heard that in a long time. Rat fucked.
It's just on the tip of my tongue today, I guess.
Speaking of which, I have to rodently digress here for a second. As someone who lives in Manhattan, Maddie, maybe you can corroborate this or not. I saw a rat the other day for the first time in months. My neighborhood, I would see rats all the time. I mean, New York City hired this rat czar. I don't know what this motherfucker's doing, but the rats are like, fuck it, we're out of here. What about Detroit? Like,
to your point, the rat czar resigned 2 days ago.
He's like,
and they're back so quickly.
My work here is done.
Well, you know, the thing is, we are digressing into New York politics, but I'll say that Adams did a couple of things okay. That was one of them, the rat czar.
Hey, I guess it takes one to know one. Oh, yeah. All right, back to Comey. My money is not only on Comey, but it's on the rule of law. It's on democracy. It's on every one of us. It's going to take some time, but that's where we're going. All right, let's talk about the other big news of the week, which, you know, the thing about Donald Trump is that big news only lasts about 13 minutes with him. Like Kimmel. Who's Kimmel? Who is Jimmy Kimmel? Did something happen with Jimmy Kimmel recently?
Can't recall. It was so long ago.
Because I forgot. It's so long ago. It's like, what, 3 days? So Kimmel, back on the air. Now, I don't really want to go into a lot of discussion on the Kimmel thing. It was another fucking travesty of justice. It ended well for the time being. I'm not sure where it's going to go. We still have Sinclair and Nexstar boycotting the show, refusing to carry it on their ABC affiliates. Trump's threatened to sue. But I don't think any of that's going to go anywhere. I believe Sinclair and Nexstar are guided by the buck like everybody else. They'll be back eventually. But what I'd rather do is just play some clips, because these are clips of people, one of which goes back 50 years, who explain this situation far better than I can. Let's start with George Carlin.
The Federal Communications Commission decided all by itself that radio and television were the only two parts of American life not protected by the free speech provisions of the First Amendment to the Constitution. I'd like to repeat that because it sounds vaguely important. The FCC, an appointed body, not elected, answerable only to the president, decided on its own that radio and television were the only two parts of American life not protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution. And why did they decide that? Because they got a letter from a minister in Mississippi. A Reverend Donald Wildman in Mississippi heard something on the radio that he didn't like. Well, Reverend, did anyone ever tell you there are two knobs on the radio? Of course, I'm sure the Reverend isn't that comfortable with anything that has two knobs on it. But hey, Reverend, there are two knobs on the radio. One of them turns the radio off, and the other one changes the station. Imagine that, Reverend, you can actually change the station. It's called freedom of choice, and it's one of the principles this country was founded upon. Look it up in the library, Reverend, if you have any of them left when you finish burning all the books.
And let's play this one from Joe Rogan.
I definitely don't think that the government should be involved ever in dictating what a comedian can or cannot say in a monologue. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Now, if the problem is the companies, if they're being pressured by the government, so if that's real, and if people on the right are like, yeah, go get them. Oh my God, you're crazy. You're crazy for supporting this, because this will be used on you.
I do not want the FCC in the business of telling local affiliates that their licenses will be removed if they broadcast material that the FCC deems to be informationally false. Why? Because one day the shoe will be on the other foot.
And that last one is right-wing influencer Ben Shapiro. And this was something which should be celebrated, because this is something that rarely happens. This is Ted Cruz condemning this.
And I got to say, that's right out of Goodfellas. That's right out of a mafioso coming into a bar going, nice bar you have here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. So again, I like Brendan Carr, but we should not be in this business. We should denounce it. It's fine to say what Jimmy Kimmel said was deplorable. It was disgraceful, and he should be off air, but we shouldn't be threatening government power to force him off air. That's a real mistake.
All right. Let's talk about this Tylenol situation just for a couple of minutes. Because I don't know, when I start seeing like images and pressers and addresses by people like Dr. Oz and RFK Jr. and Donald Trump talking about our health and vaccine, it just, I'm so traumatized from the Trump Fauci days and can we put the bleach in? Should we inject the bleach and then do the light? Like, I went right back to those days. I remember thinking then, like, how is this fucking guy in charge? Now we've got like three of them. Just think about that. Trump, Bobby Kennedy Jr., Dr. Oz. But there's always comedy, right? Right, Jen?
There has to be.
You gotta laugh, because if you don't laugh, let's play these clips.
First, effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay? Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol. Don't take Tylenol. Don't take it. Oh, with Tylenol, don't take it. Don't take it. Don't use Tylenol. Don't take Tylenol. Don't take Tylenol. Fight like hell not to take it. I think you shouldn't take it. Don't take Tylenol. The baby gets a shot. They say, here, take me both Tylenol. I've heard that for years. Take Tylenol. Don't take Tylenol. Don't have your baby take Tylenol. Don't give Tylenol to the baby. Don't give Tylenol to the baby. Don't give your baby Tylenol. Don't take Tylenol. Don't take Tylenol. Don't take Tylenol. Don't take it. Don't take it. So that's it. There's nothing much to say. Don't take Tylenol. Just don't take it. And I just say it again. Don't take Tylenol. Don't take it.
But can we take acetaminophen or whatever? Can we take that?
Yes, just don't take Tylenol. Tylenol!
I just want to make sure, because I'm not clear on what he was saying. Should we not be taking Tylenol?
Don't take Tylenol!
Don't.
Wait, how does he say it?
He does that thing.
Tylenol!
No, he's like,
see the hell, lady! Or they call it Tylenol.
I'm glad at least he didn't do that thing that he always does where he's like,
they call it Tylenol. Anybody ever hear of that? You ever hear that word before? Not everybody heard of that before. Like, no one has ever heard of that. It's Tylenol.
Like, when he does that thing,
Yes.
he'll take like the most commonly used word in the English language and be like,
anybody ever heard of that before?
Groceries.
Thanks. Touche, sir. Oh my God, don't take Tylenol. The fucking people at Tylenol, man, they are like, wait a second. We had that thing like in the 80s or whatever, that scandal. Now we got this shit again.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they had recalled all the Tylenol because cyanide had been put in it.
Tampered, yeah.
Tampered.
Look,
yeah.
Here's a little public service message. Dear America, whatever you do, whether you're a man, a woman, a child, a dog, or a cat, or a bunny, or especially a pregnant woman, do not, I repeat, do not take any medical advice from Donald Trump, Dr. Oz, and Bobby fucking Kennedy Jr. I hope I've made myself clear. All right, let's get to our winners and losers.
My winner, the 12-foot bronze statues of Trump and Epstein prancing and holding hands erected on the National Mall on Tuesday because release of the Epstein files is not going away. My loser, the new Pentagon policy that requires credentialed press members to sign a pledge to not report information that has been authorized for release, including unclassified information or risk losing credentials that provide access to the Pentagon.
My winner is Representative Jamie Raskin and Senator Richard Blumenthal for kicking off an investigation into the law firms providing free legal work for the Department of Commerce. My loser, any independent executive branch agency. SCOTUS overturned a century-old precedent when the right-wing majority allowed Trump's firing of the Federal Trade Commission's Rebecca Slaughter to stand.
My winner, Adelita Grijalva, who won her special election race in Arizona's 7th district by nearly 40 points, 17 points higher than Kamala Harris's victory there last November. It's another special election win for Democrats. It demonstrates that Hispanics are turning back to the party and now gives Democrats the ability to force a floor vote on releasing the full Epstein files. My loser, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who, in admitting Trump's massive cuts to USAID will cause the death of millions of people, millions of children, had the gall to blame those deaths on England, China, and Canada for not supporting USAID enough. So that brings us to the weekly rant. So after 8 months of attacking Ukraine and its scrappy, courageous President Volodymyr Zelensky, while defending and enabling Russia and its brutal dictator, Vladimir Putin, President Donald Trump has the world buzzing over his comments this week about the Russia-Ukraine war. His so-called big U-turn is garnering praise from both the left and the right, and from Zelensky himself. Trump's tough guy talk began at the annual UN General Assembly meeting Tuesday, where he once again made idle threats about sanctions and tariffs. He then posted on Truth Social that Russia is weak and that Ukraine can, quote, win all of Ukraine back. And then he replied, yes, when a reporter asked if he believes NATO member nations should shoot down Russian aircraft if they fly over their airspace. That's pretty tough talk indeed from the Manchurian man-baby, who's been licking Putin's balls all year while calling Zelensky a dictator who started the war. Make no mistake, Trump's sudden shift in rhetoric is due to his ego being bruised because his friend, Vlad, has consistently dissed him as he intensifies his assault on Ukraine. Trump naively thought he could, quote, easily end the war, given that friendship, and now feels foolish for being publicly humiliated by the former KGB spy who everyone else in the fucking world has deemed a lying, untrustworthy monster. It's as if Trump's a 10-year-old in a schoolyard whining that,
Vlad's being a dick to me, so I'm just going to be friends with Zelensky now instead.
Does anyone truly believe that anything Trump said this week is because he truly supports Ukraine and views Russia as our archenemy? Or that he has a core ideology or overarching geopolitical goals and objectives? Does anyone believe that, regardless of what he said this week, he wouldn't shift yet again and say the exact opposite tomorrow? Does anyone not believe that Trump's statements and decisions are made solely because he's an impulse-controlled, bankrupt sociopath and malignant narcissist who's driven purely by ego, insecurity, spite, and what's good for him and him alone? So please stop. Just stop analyzing Trump as if he's a normal president and commander-in-chief. Stop normalizing his incessant flip-flopping and erratic, irresponsible, reckless, dangerous approach to foreign policy. And if anyone still believes there's even a shred of coherent ideology and critical thinking with Trump, consider this bizarre statement from his post this week. Quote,
In any event, I wish both countries well. We will continue to supply weapons to NATO for NATO to do what they want with them. Good luck to all.
What the fuck? He wishes both countries well? Good luck to all? Seriously? This isn't a fucking Little League baseball game. It's a brutal war. Started when Russia, without provocation, invaded a sovereign nation, which is a critical, loyal democratic ally of the United States. A war being prosecuted by a murderous war criminal whose country seeks to decimate Ukraine and fully occupy it after. You don't wish them good luck, for fuck's sake. So no, I don't trust a word Trump said this week, because the nanosecond he feels insecure or threatened again, or Putin once again tells him to fuck off, the coward-in-chief will retreat as he's done many times before and turn on Zelensky and Ukraine again. Okay, let's get Katie Phang out here. She is an independent journalist and trial lawyer, formerly the host of the Katie Phang Show on MSNBC. Katie also has served as a legal contributor and legal correspondent for several media outlets such as NBC, MSNBC, and Fox News. She's had a front row seat to some of the most consequential moments in recent history, including the unsealing of multiple criminal indictments against Donald Trump, oral arguments before the United States Supreme Court on presidential immunity, and attending the only criminal trial of an American president. After several years in mainstream media, Katie departed cable TV to dive into independent media, launching her own YouTube channel at Katie Phang News and Substack at Katie Phang, leveraging her experience, including as a trial lawyer for more than 25 years, to provide compelling analysis and commentary on the latest legal and political issues across the globe. Katie, welcome into the back room.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Andy, for having me.
You have been on my get list for quite a while, so it is an honor for me to have you here. So I'm really looking forward to chatting about all the craziness. So let's start with craziness number one, which is the breaking news that came last night that James Comey, former FBI director, has been indicted. Give me your take on all this.
It's a pretty horrific assault on the rule of law and on our criminal justice system, or even more broadly, our judicial system. It eliminates the idea that prosecutors can act independently of influence, pressure, and coercion and intimidation. I mean, look, the Trump administration has made a hallmark of its time and tenure so far as being one that is relying on a campaign of intimidation and fear to get things done. And when you see the president of the United States weaponize the Department of Justice and every other federal agency that is within his control to be able to go after perceived political enemies and opponents, then we truly are having to call the time of death for democracy and the rule of law as now. And it sounds hyperbolic, and I know it kind of drives people crazy because we really are always saying that this is something to be alarmed about. But when I say that this is truly the break glass, 5-alarm fire moment, it is now. Trump has been hell-bent in, quote, getting James Comey for years. And, I mentioned the ironies are, pretty abundant. A lot of people say that it's James Comey's fault that Donald Trump made it into the Oval Office in November of 2016 as a result of Comey announcing his, investigation into Hillary Clinton. And I am truly begging and beseeching people to, I'm not here to litigate that, right? Like, I'm not here to substantiate or make you feel better about that emotional reaction, but we shouldn't be celebrating this in any way. If you truly believe in the idea that there should be independence in the way that criminal prosecutions are brought, then you should be terrified that the president can take the full power of the government to go after a political enemy.
Do you think that people on the right, like in particular MAGA, even moderate Republicans, do you think they don't understand what you just said in the sense that they don't believe that this could ever happen to people that they support, that they voted for, that they believe are on the right side of history, for however you want to define that they really just do see it as vengeance on Trump's part, vindication for him? Because that's what it feels like to me.
So it's funny. I think that there's probably, from what I've learned and what I've read about people that are squarely in the MAGA camp, I think some of them look at it as revenge, retribution, kind of tit for tat, eye for an eye, Hammurabi's code kind of energy. But I also think some people are saying, well, look, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Biden did that to Donald Trump, right? They want to say that Biden and his DOJ prosecuted Trump because he was a political enemy of Biden. And yet the most amazing thing is you've never heard during the Biden DOJ prosecutions of Donald Trump that there were line prosecutors that prepared memos that said that there's no there when it comes to James Comey, that there was no evidence to be able to indict James Comey, that you shouldn't go after James Comey. None of that has ever percolated to the top at any point in time when you've talked about those prosecutions. And so I think for MAGA, they just think that this is something that, quote, we have coming. But here's the thing, for what it's worth, Trump is not always going to be in office. I don't care what he says about this bullshit third term. Republicans are not always going to have the trifecta of the House, Senate, and the Oval Office, which is why I am unabashedly and unashamedly saying that there will be a day of reckoning and accountability for people that have been doing things that are illegal and unethical at the behest of and to enable somebody like Donald Trump.
Yeah, and to that point, I love what Eric Swalwell has been saying in the last few days. He's been saying just that the day of reckoning will come. And when Democrats do control Congress again, and perhaps there's a Democrat president, there will be accountability. I think the Republicans in Congress they're just too wrapped up in their fealty and their fear. I know they grasp that, but I just don't think that's their priority now. It's just more the people at home. It's like when you think about the Kimmel thing, it's like, do you want Alex Jones being canceled or threatened? Do you want Steve Bannon to be indicted? Like, I don't know if they're taking it to that level. But you raised a really interesting point before, which leads into a question I wanted to ask you, which is what also happened with the Biden prosecutions is that there was evidence, right? There was juries, there were convictions, right? It wasn't weaponization, no matter what they say. And Donald Trump wasn't some victim of a witch hunt. Donald Trump was a criminal who got held accountable for it. That's very different here. I do agree with what you're saying that I don't know if MAGA sees it that way, but I'm not a lawyer. You are. Do you think none of this has anything to do with the goal of prosecuting and getting convictions versus it's more performative, it's more for intimidation, it's more for fear, the chilling effect? You know, Comey's going to walk. I'm sure he's going to walk, and maybe right away on a motion to dismiss. But it's the next Comey, you know, the next Jimmy Kimmel. Isn't that really what this is all about?
Yeah, so I think one of the things I really want to stress is it should never have gotten to the point where somebody like James Comey has to file a motion to dismiss, right? And I've made it very clear as well that Comey has privilege, right? He has the money, he has the wherewithal to be able to do this. There's people that have not only been through the system, that may potentially go through the system, that may not have the ability to do a full-throated defense the way that Comey is going to be able to do. It is a remarkable reflection, just to backpedal just a second to something that you said about the reaction that we got from the American people to Jimmy Kimmel versus maybe what we won't see vis-a-vis James Comey. I mean, the James Comey stuff is very legal, kind of technically legal. And that's why the messaging around it has to be so important for people to understand that when the system gets hijacked and when the guardrails are completely destroyed by Trump, that's when you really should be worried, because he's totally changing the rules of engagement. The rules of engagement were not set by you and me, Andy. The rules of engagement were set by the laws and by the rules of procedure, right? The criminal rules, the civil rules of procedure. These are things that are supposed to be abided by. But when you handpick a contract killer like Lindsay Halligan, and listen, I have to say that in quotes because she's so incompetent and so inexperienced to be able to do this, that really the only qualification she has to do this is she is what I call a law lackey for Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. But when you are a prosecutor, especially putting aside that, when you're a lawyer, Andy, you have an oath that you take to respect and to abide by the laws, the Constitution. These are not things that we do as lawyers. But when you're a prosecutor, let me tell you, a huge part of my career, I was a prosecutor. And some of the best advice I always got from smarter, wiser people than me, including judges, was to wield that power carefully. Because prosecutors are actually more powerful than the judges in a courtroom. Judges eventually get their hands on the cases, but prosecutors are the ones that get the ball started in the first place. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, maybe a judge will do the right thing by way of James Comey and kick the case, and quickly, hopefully. Maybe it'll end up in the hands of a jury where the jury respects its duty and its oath, and it does the right thing by James Comey, but it took a prosecutor to get this started. And prosecutors have people's liberty at stake. Comey is looking at 20 years on one count alone in federal prison for the obstruction charge. So it is a very real thing to initiate a criminal prosecution. And now somebody, an American citizen, whether you like him or not, though, he now has to defend against a politically charged retaliatory prosecution, a vindictive prosecution, just because he said no to Donald Trump and got fired from his job. I have to remind everybody, he got fired from his job because he wouldn't do what Donald Trump wanted him to do, which was wrong, years ago. And since then, he's been a thorn in Donald Trump's side.
What does it say to you that she's handled this indictment herself, that she could not get any other career prosecutor to sign the indictment, that she's out there all alone, especially after Eric Seibert, who she replaced as U.S. attorney, resigned because he said there was no evidence there to present to a grand jury. So again, it's sort of like bolsters what I was saying before about this is not really about trying a case or getting a conviction. It's just all about intimidation.
It's performative, but unfortunately, though, it's one thing to just take to Truth Social and say bad things about James Comey. This man now has a federal criminal case number. Right. Assigned to him in the Eastern District of Virginia. And I would say, I call Lindsay Halligan a useful idiot, but most of them are. Alina Habba is the same, right? Todd Blanche, Emil Bovee, they're all useful idiots. But I caution lawyers because your bar license could go by the wayside and be gone, a la Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani and Jeffrey Clark and Kenneth Chesbrough. I mean, the list goes on and on. Jenna Ellis, right? These are people that have had to pay serious consequences for doing what Donald Trump has asked them to do. And instead of, being strong and independent thinkers like Eric Seibert, they were like, okay, we'll just go along. And so Lindsey Halligan, useful idiot, has now put it all on the line because it's not just Trump that is going to be in the crosshairs of people that care about democracy. It's Lindsey Halligan.
Mm-hmm.
She is most certainly going to have to defend her law license. She's barred in the state of Florida down here. She has a non-existent career to speak of down here. She was plucked out of obscurity by Trump to become part of his legal team and has effectively done nothing of consequence other than dismantle the Smithsonian by claiming that there's racist stuff against white people there that has to be eliminated. I mean, that's her singular claim to fame. That, and she looks disturbingly like Hope Hicks. I mean, that's it.
Right, wow.
There's nothing else to say about her. And I don't relish, taking down a fellow female lawyer, especially, but she actually gives us a bad name.
Is she even a member of the DC bar? Do you know?
No, she's not even a member of the Virginia bar.
Wow.
And you don't have to be technically a member of the Virginia bar to be the federal prosecutor there, but shit, don't you think it would be helpful to actually know that rocket docket jurisdiction and know how it works? It is a singularly unique jurisdiction in that, for example, James Comey could go to trial as quickly as 30 days from now, right? It's kind of wild to think how fast things move, not just in criminal cases, but in civil cases. The judges there get a lot of the national security cases because they are kissing cousins, neighbors to Washington, D.C. There is a lot that goes down in that particular district court of Virginia. And now Lindsey Halligan is now responsible for prosecuting that. I've said this last night. I'll say it now. This Department of Justice cannot release the Epstein files for shit.
Right.
Can't get that done. But then they can go and present to a grand jury and indict a political enemy of Donald Trump. Oh, but somebody who's a friend of Donald Trump's, that was Jeffrey Epstein, can't get that information out. Ghislaine Maxwell, who's been, quote, helping Donald Trump, can't get that information out about her. But gosh, we can get an indictment against James Comey within, 48 hours? She just got sworn in, Andy, just a couple of days ago as the U.S. attorney.
Well, we've seen this before with judges. When the Trump team walks into court with some bogus, frivolous shit, and the judge excoriates the legal team, you could almost hear what the judge is likely to say about this case.
I want to also let people know that when Eric, I call it a forced resignation, because Trump defamed him in that Truth Social post, calling him all sorts of names and saying that he fired Eric. I think it was a forced resignation because it was either you do what I want you to do or you're out. So What do you do? If you have ethics, you're out. But here's the thing. So Eric Seibert was the interim U.S. attorney handpicked by Donald Trump. And those interim positions are for 120 days by statute. After those 120 days are up, all of the judges in that district can vote on who should be the successor. They all unanimously picked Eric to remain as the U.S. attorney. Compare and contrast to Alina Habba. Habba was the handpick of Trump. 120 days later, when her days were up as interim, the judges were like, no way, we're going to pick somebody else. We don't want you. So if you're one of those district court judges that had so much respect for Eric that you wanted him to stay in that role, and now this Lindsey Halligan chick comes rolling in with her blowout and is like, hey, like, you think that these judges are going to take kindly to this? They're not dumb. They know a political prosecution when they see it. And so I agree that I don't think it's going to live long in terms of this case against Comey. But gosh, Andy, it shouldn't have to be a part of our conversation, right? Like, you and I should be talking about whatever we want to talk about, because that's what the First Amendment lets us do. But we shouldn't have to talk about this. We shouldn't have to be worrying about if you and I run afoul of, Donald Trump, that he's going to sick Brendan Carr from the FCC on us, right? And pressure people. Well, thank gosh you and I are independent, right? Because that's the way to be these days. But sick somebody on us to try to get something done so that we can't speak out anymore. And in this instance, to silence James Comey so that he won't continue to be a thorn in Donald Trump's side.
How much do you think his own posts, like the one he did last weekend, and all the comments he has made over the last few years about Comey, how much do you think that's going to help Comey's defense team with, a defense like selective prosecution or vindictive prosecution?
those posts, especially from this weekend, will be Exhibit A for his defense attorney, Pat Fitzgerald, who is also had a storied and amazing career as the longest U.S. attorney in Chicago. That'll be Exhibit A for any motion to dismiss. And the fact that Trump's airing of grievances in those Truth Social posts about how, woe is me, I was indicted 5 times and prosecuted and all this other stuff and convicted. Why aren't you doing that to somebody else, Pamela Joe? I mean, that in and of itself also is glaring evidence that this is some type of retaliatory action that's being taken against a political enemy. This is when everybody needs to have a gut check about what they've signed up for. For those of us that didn't vote for him, we knew this was going to happen. For those of us that warned that Project 2025 was just seriously the obvious blueprint for how completely fucked up this country was going to be under his reign of terror, we all knew this was going to happen. But I urge people that are tuning in and listening that maybe voted for him or maybe didn't vote at all, right, that sat this one out in November for some reason, I would ask you to gut check right now and say, this can't possibly be what you signed up for. This can't possibly be what you signed up for.
Do you think on that note that we are at some sort of inflection point which might build off of what we've seen in the last couple of weeks with the Jimmy Kimmel situation where you had Ted Cruz? Now, he didn't go right after Donald Trump. He targeted it more to Brendan Carr, FCC commissioner. But he was pretty forceful in his condemnation of canceling people over free speech. Do you think we're going to see more of that from the right, that there is a line that is being crossed here that they are not willing to accept? Some of them, at least.
I don't know when it comes. I don't think so when it comes to James Comey. I think Jimmy Kimmel, you as a Republican may not like his jokes, but he lives in the space of being a comedian, right? He lives in the space of entertainment. Although entertainment, as we know, right, hasn't been immune to cancel culture on both sides, frankly, let's be honest. Mm-hmm. But I don't think James Comey is some rallying kind of profile or figure for a lot of people, including Republicans. We saw people like Rand Paul and Ted Cruz and others step up and say, you shouldn't be doing this vis-a-vis Jimmy Kimmel, right? We should not be pulling people like that, and we shouldn't be sicking the FCC, like a lapdog for Donald Trump on Jimmy Kimmel and pressuring ABC and Disney. I don't think we're going to get that type of rallying behind somebody like James Comey, because the Republicans, including Megyn Kelly and others, have made it clear that they have never liked him. They think that he didn't do his job the right way when Donald Trump wanted him to do something wrong in Trump term 1.0. But I do think that the inflection point, analysis by you is accurate in that we are on the eve of a government shutdown next week.
Right.
And we have people that are filing for bankruptcy for American farmers. And we have people that don't have health care. And we have people that are now looking at tariffs that are insane. One of my good friends is disturbed because she just saw the announcement of tariffs that are impacting her job, which is she works in interior design. And you would think, oh my God, they don't care.
Kitchen cabinets. What has he got against kitchen cabinets?
Kitchen cabinets and the products and the materials that go into that. The tariffs are nuts, like 25% and higher. And she's legitimately worried. She's like, I don't know if I'm going to have a job. Yeah, there's that small 1%, the billionaires, right, that are not going to be impacted by that. And frankly, they're the ones that probably voted for Trump. But there are people that this trickle-down effect, this collateral damage effect is something that's inescapable. And I feel like this is kind of like the glomming on in that inflection point of people that are having to say, look, I can't even get stuff through customs now that I ordered from overseas because, it's being locked up in customs because people are waiting, distributors are waiting until they have enough to merit paying it to get it through. I mean, there's just so much that is impacting people on in their daily lives that this James Comey thing may be too ephemeral for them, right? It may be a little bit too kind of in the weeds for them, but it shouldn't be. And I feel like part of what we have to do is underscore how this really isn't some hypothetical moment in time that is happening to somebody somewhere else in another life. This is something that's very impactful for who we are as daily Americans.
You mentioned people in the media, but do you think it has any resonance with people in Congress, again, using the Cruz example, and again, citing what Eric Swalwell said? Do you think some of these guys understand that they won't be in power always? And there have been unprecedented shattering of norms, institutions, boundaries, grossly unethical behavior, bordering on or even actual illegal behavior by a lot of what these sycophantic congressional Republicans have done this year. Do you think any of them are making that connection? Like, I could be James Comey in 4 years or 2 years.
If they're not, then they're slow, because they should be. I mean, I think that you should not underestimate what the next kind of round of Democrats in power are capable of doing. At least, look, I will be very clear. I am so disenchanted with our electeds in D.C. right now, for the exception of a handful of them, that I don't count on them to get anything done. The level of disconnect between them and their constituents is so profound. And I feel like they are way too comfortable in their jobs, that they are prioritizing their jobs over their constituents. And that was never supposed to be the case. They are supposed to be the voices, the mouthpiece for their constituents that can't literally go to D.C. and advocate in D.C. Why? Because they're in California and Nevada and Florida and all these places. They are not able to be there. And so when their electeds are prioritizing their posterity and their longevity and their job security over what's important to the voters, that's when the voters need to step up and speak out and say, I don't like how absolutely, weak and impotent you are. Which is why I'm saying shut the damn government down.
Right.
Why would Congress fund their own irrelevancy? They have not been standing up to the executive branch, excepting, again, a few. So this is just a general statement. They're not doing their job. So why should we, why should Congress fund their irrelevancy? And why should we as voters continue to fund and support them in roles that they're not doing well either? Not even well at all. And so if it hasn't occurred to Republicans in the House and the Senate that not only are their jobs at risk, but they could also be looking at future prosecutions for their bad wrongdoings or future type of referrals for their conduct, then they really are asleep at the switch, aren't they? Because they really should be paying attention to what's happening right now. Because I am not above accountability and retribution. I'll tell you that right now. I'm not.
I am your retribution.
He told us.
He did. He told us everything. But you see, I love when they go like, "Look, Donald Trump ran on this." It's like running on something and saying something out loud doesn't make it right or legal, right? But that's their justification all the time. Like, hey, he told us what he was going to do.
But Andy, here's the thing, though: the man is singularly incapable of doing this by himself, and that's the thing. It's the efficiency and the level of efficiency. I mean, I've admitted this, Andy, and I'm not embarrassed to own it. I was one of the people that was screaming about Project 2025 for a long time. In fact, it impacted my job at MSNBC, right? I had been speaking about this for so long, but I underestimated how well they could do it and how quickly they did it.
Yeah.
It's only been, what, eight months, almost 9 months that he's been in office, January 20th, right? Of 2025 or so. It's terrifying, the level of efficiency that they have achieved when it's come to dismantling what's going on in our country. And so I didn't underestimate what they were capable of. I just underestimated the speed by which they were going to be able to kick it all in.
Yeah. And, what do you think is going to happen going forward with the threats he's made against Adam Schiff, against Letitia James, John Bolton?
You're going to see an indictment against, you'll see an indictment against Tish James in the next couple of weeks. Adam Schiff may be a little different, but to hell with it. I mean, look, Andy, we don't know what presentation of evidence happens behind closed doors at a grand jury, right? So I don't know what presentation is being made for an Adam Schiff indictment, and could be enough for a grand jury to say it. Grand juries indict ham sandwiches. DC grand juries don't indict Subway sandwiches, but most grand juries indict ham sandwiches, as it said, and that's not a ding on grand juries. But they are only going off of what is presented in a one-sided way. The defendant and his criminal defense attorney, they're not present in a grand jury. They don't get the chance to push back against the presentation of evidence. Right. It's hearsay. You could go in and say, well, let me tell you what my investigation revealed. And I spoke to 14 different people, and they all said that Donald Trump did X. And
they just have to present probable cause. That's it.
That is it. It is not the standard at trial.
And a big difference between that and presenting evidence beyond a reasonable doubt.
Huge difference. Yeah. Huge difference, which is why if an indictment gets returned by a grand jury, then the sufficiency of it gets tested immediately. Immediately it gets tested by a criminal defendant. And there are motions and there's things that can be done to attack the sufficiency of that indictment. But really, unfortunately, the system is set up and established in a way that once that indictment's returned, you pretty much now have to be on the back of your heels. But I am telling you and everyone, do not underestimate James Comey. This dude has seen this shit coming, right? Like if there was anybody who understood
I would
that
imagine
he
he's
was
very
in the
prepared.
crosshairs, that guy, and that guy is like the stereotypical straight-laced button-up G-man, right? Like he is the FBI. Like that dude is prepared. But what I want to also mention quickly is the collateral damage in his life. His daughter, Maureen Comey, wrongfully terminated from the Southern District of New York, a career federal prosecutor who prosecuted Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, P. Diddy, and others. She got fired from her job a week before Todd Blanche sat down with Ghislaine Maxwell. And then just last night, James Comey's son-in-law, who works in the DOJ's office at the Eastern District of Virginia, he resigned. He resigned to who? Lindsay Halligan, his new boss. I mean, obviously, he's not staying in an office that is prosecuting his father-in-law, but in his letter, in his resignation letter, which was one sentence to Lindsay Halligan, he did it out of respect for his own oath of office, right? I mean, so
and he prosecuted the J6 rioters.
He is one of the people that was working in that office. But that's not why listen, he wasn't one of the people. I've got people here in Florida, in the Southern District of Florida, that lost their jobs, even though they were exceptional prosecutors. Why? Because they either worked on the January 6th investigation or, Andy, get this, just this past week, a very good rising star in the Southern District of Florida down here, he got summarily fired on the Jewish holiday this Tuesday by Pamela Joe. Why? Because in 2017, he posted blog posts that were critical of Donald Trump and Trump 1.0. I shit you not.
Well,
that's what I'm telling you, people. This is the type of craziness that's happening right now.
Yeah, well, no doubt this is an extraordinary escalation in Trump's effort to punish and prosecute his political enemies. A lot of people are saying we've crossed a Rubicon. But, with Trump, he's so exhausting, his, flood the zone strategy, which works so well. It's so exhausting that how many Rubicon crossings have we already had? I mean, it's easy to forget that
how many Rubicons are there to cross?
That's right. But a few months ago, he said that Obama was guilty of treason. And everybody was like, we've crossed a Rubicon. So it's like, can we all just agree that there's no more Rubicons to cross with Donald Trump? Enough with the fucking Rubicons, right?
Listen, I think we get married to the colloquialisms, don't we? I mean, how many times did we use the word unprecedented to talk about Donald Trump?
Right, just stop. Unprecedented. When I hear that on TV,
listen,
I'm like,
I think
screaming.
We're a bit abusive, I think. I think we take a lot of, luxuries with that. But I think, to your well-taken point, I think that we... it's like I don't mind actually being maybe a little naive to still be upset and shocked by these things, though, Andy, because I think that that's just a reinforcement of our own humanity, that we're not the kind of people that would do this, right? Like we are always stunned and shocked by everything that's happening, and maybe we say we've now crossed the Rubicon because we're the kind of people that would never think to do this. And it's not because of a failure of imagination. It's just because we have the decency to not do these things. So I think that is the reason why I and others may continuously express our level of shock and disgust, I think, at it, because we don't want to ever be in a place, in such a dark place, that we think that any of this should be the norm.
Well, your former network, CNN, I watch way too much of both of them. And it never ceases to amaze me when there's a panel discussion and Trump does something crazy or says something crazy and the host turns to the panel and goes, what? Why would he do that? I have George Conway on this podcast all the time, and we always joke
I love George.
Why would he do that?
Great.
Because he's a fucking sociopath. That's why he would do it. So, but they're never going to say that because they have to have a conversation. They have to fill how many hours of news time. But it's this normalization that there's actual analysis and discussion over why he would do something that is not just unprecedented or Rubicon crossing, but is just fucking crazy.
And that is where American media, at least mainstream media or legacy media, traditional media, whatever moniker you want to use, Andy, that's where they have been failing Americans. That never should be the focus of a conversation on cable. But cable news is becoming irrelevant, not only on the objective metrics of viewers, but I think it's because people don't want to tune in and hear something like you're saying. I also think that if we really have crossed the Rubicon, and if we really are in this place, Andy, that is just so alarmist, then why are we not having that sense of urgency and exigency from our traditional media sources. Instead, we get both sidesisms. Well, what about this? Well, what about that? It's like, no, there is no apples to apples comparison. You can't compare Biden to Trump. You can't compare Kamala Harris to Trump. Like, that's not a part of it. So not only do you get the both sidesism, but you don't get that sense of urgency. And when you try to convey that sense of urgency, you're told to watch your tone.
Right.
And when that happens, peace out.
Yeah, well,
I mean, that's what happens, you know?
We're slipping into this, I'll call it semi-autocratic state, because we're not fully there yet. But I think people in this country, when you say to them, we're going to become a dictatorship, they think of North Korea or Russia, people getting sent to Siberia or killed. You know, Trump, he's an evil genius. He's very smart. He understands history. He has studied everyone from Nixon to Reagan. I mean, he's Make America Great Again. Where'd that come from? Came from Reagan. It actually was stolen from Reagan. And he looks at Erdogan and he looks at Orban, and he has very smart people around him like Stephen Miller who are helping, like to your point before, helping him accomplish his goals of being the strong man he never was, but always wants to be. And so what is America probably going to look like if this shit continues? We'll still go to baseball games. We'll still sit at cafes outside. You know, we'll still have our 401ks. Stock market might do well. We'll even have elections, but will they be free and fair elections? And so I don't know if the average American understands that in the way they need to. And you know, especially when eggs are so expensive, fault, right? You know?
Well, listen, and that falls squarely on, I think, establishment Democrats. You know, like one of the biggest takeaways for me from November was how we can't rely upon those kind of bigger traditional institutions like the DNC and others to help us. Because they showed how absolutely ineffective they were going to be about that. And they continue to disappoint, and like the DCCC, et cetera. I will say this, Andy, you know, I had the privilege of having Ruth Ben-Ghiat on my YouTube channel yesterday. And we spent, unlike when you're on cable and you only get, like 6 minutes to talk to people. And this is why I love hanging out with you here. You know, we spent 20-something minutes with exploring, like, grounded in the facts and reality of history, how Trump has not only gotten where he is, but how he continues where he is. And she leaned into historical examples from other countries of strong men. I mean, that was the title of her best-selling book. Yep. And so it was so illuminating, not because I hadn't really heard it before, but when you hear all the pieces of the puzzle put together in a way that makes sense, because I've always struggled with my perceptions of Donald Trump. I just don't think he's smart. I just don't think he's savvy. I mean, it's just his word choice is just so woefully disgusting and dumb. And, you know, and I've gotten criticism from people that follow me and watch me. And they're like, Katie, you shouldn't say he's dumb, blah, blah. I'm like, well, look, I mean, like, I don't think he's very smart. But, you know, Ruth kind of grounded me in a certain perception about him. And I invite people to go and listen to it because it was just so enlightening. But I guess what I want to say, Andy, is, yes, people will sit there and drink their cafe. Right? They'll drink their cafecitos, they'll eat their pastries, and they'll watch kind of like Nero, like playing the fiddle with the burning, like, you know, of Rome. Because unfortunately, I think it's just a reflection of where we are in just society. We have to be directly impacted by something for it to kind of make us feel like galvanized or engaged. Right. And that's why I'm urging people, run for office, run for school board, run for local and state office. Be that person who's interacting on a daily basis with the people in your community, because getting that pothole fixed for you is so much more important than Katie Phang and Andy Ostroy talking about fascism, right? Like making sure that my kid's education is a good one in her free public school. That's what I care about more so some days than some other shit that's happening in DC. That's why I'm telling people, be engaged. Whatever that level of engagement is comfortable for you. You may not want to go out to the streets on October 18th on No Kings Day 2.0, nokings.org, go check it out. You may not want to go out in the streets and protest because they might not be your cup of tea, but heck, maybe you want to look into running for the school board. Or maybe you want to sit down in that local cafe where you're enjoying your coffee, but you sit down with a group of people and maybe you guys do a postcard thing. I don't know, but I feel like if you're engaged, you could care more. And it's more immediately impactful on you on a personal level. And that is why I am urging people to find that space and to find it quickly, because 2026, those midterms are around the corner for us.
Yeah, and that's such a great point. And we saw that in action last week over the Jimmy Kimmel shitstorm. You know, it's the people who caused that reversal in his cancellation, the people protesting, the people canceling their subscriptions, the people not going to Disneyland and Disney World. That's what made that happen. Was it a business decision? Sure. Anything corporate is going to be a business decision, but it's about money. And in this case,
that's
the people.
Our power.
Yes.
We
have all the power.
Purse.
We have all the power.
We have so much power. The boycotts of Amazon and Target. I mean, we have power that we are ceding every day that we shouldn't be ceding. And that's why, if that is your level of engagement, it may not be the street protest, but it may be, fuck you, Disney Plus, and my subscription. Then maybe that's what it takes. I don't know, but I am so grateful that Americans cared enough to do it, which is why I'm hoping and I am praying that when people are listening to this right now, that they understand that this James Comey thing really is a breach of trust. You know, it's a breach of integrity and something that we really should all be caring about.
Yeah, it's a violation of all of our rights. I mean, look, my nickname around here is Optimistic Andy. It's getting harder.
I'm glad.
It's getting harder and harder to be that guy, but it's something I just am, because I believe that our fellow Americans are good, decent people. We see that in the polling with all these wedge issues. And people don't want the government in their business. They don't want to lose their rights. And so I do believe in the power of the people. And to your point, we just have to see people, engage on any level that they can. Because, look, I always say that Election Day is the only day in the year where the janitor and the billionaire have the same exact power. But people need to understand that.
That's so powerful when you think about that. No, that just gave me the chills when you said that, Andy, because it's true. Because it really is the one day truly out of the year when your ability to make a difference has just as much weight as a total stranger who's differently situated, right, than you. But look, I like to say that we have to keep on going. I say be mad, be outraged, demand accountability on my channel because I believe in that. But I also have recently said we need to turn our despair into determination, because the despair is not going to lead us out of this. Right? Misery loves company. You and I could sit here for hours and just bitch about the state of the world.
We could be Chuck Schumer.
Oh my Lord, we could sit on our asses. No, but I want us to turn our despair into determination. And that, again, could be anything, but on an individual level, if you're feeling determined and you want to rattle cages, that's what we're here to do.
Yeah. In our last couple of minutes, I want to ask you about this Pete Hegseth show that's going to happen next week, where he's got 800 generals, admirals, senior brass coming to Virginia in a short notice meeting with no stated agenda. What do you think this is about?
I think it's another distraction is what I think it is. I think it's, if I'm Trump and I've deputized Pete Hegseth to do all my dumb shit at the Department of Defense, let's flex a little, right? That whole military parade / birthday, U.S. Army birthday, Donald Trump thing, like that type of stuff, right? I just think it's a distraction right now. And I think it's because of everything else that's going on. I'm not quite sure what it is, right? And so I have some trepidation about it, but I'm also like, well, it's Pete Hegseth and he's dumber than a box of rocks. So I'm sure he'll probably leak it on a Signal chat and we'll know before next week.
That's an insult to a box of rocks, by the way.
The dumber rocks. He's dumber than a box of dumb rocks. There you go. How's that?
And what do you think about Kamala Harris's book, the things she wrote, the things she's been saying, and whether or not that leads to a future in politics?
Listen, why not let her have her voice? Everybody else gets to write their books and talk about what the thought process was. I don't have a problem with it whatsoever. And, some people were like, oh, it's just making it so divisive. Listen, I supported I supported Kamala Harris before, during, after. So I guess in full disclosure, that's who I am, right? But I don't have any bones. I don't begrudge her writing a book and talking about it, and let her have her truth and to speak about it, because that's what she deserves. And look, you know what? Who the hell knows how to predict whether or not somebody has a future in politics anymore? Like, if you had sat down and told me, blah, 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 blah about somebody in DC, I'd be like, oh yeah, I guess maybe, they'll be there forever. The hell with that. Look what happened. Well, look what's happening in New York with Zohar Mamdani, right? Like, I think people, voters are saying, I want authenticity. And if you want authenticity, Andy, we're not perfect. We are not unblemished people. We come in with our warts and all. And the authenticity is, Do you accept me? Do you believe me when I tell you that I give a shit about what's happening to you and I care about your family? And even though I may not be a part of your family, I can empathize with what you are going through. If you believe me, then maybe you'll forgive a transgression that I've done. And maybe you'll forgive that, maybe I don't do something or whatever. But we have to stop lionizing. We have to stop lionizing our political figures. I am over that shit. I do not know why they get celebrity status. They are just politicians. They are just regular people that have political jobs. And I'm tired of putting them on pedestals because I don't think they've earned it, frankly.
No, but it's also the double standard you were talking about before. It's like people are questioning whether Harris has a future in politics, yet there's a convicted felon sociopath in the White House. And as Jimmy Kimmel said the other night, like, I'm not surprised that you gave me my job back, but I am surprised that you gave Trump his job back. Like, I mean, there's no conventional wisdom anymore, right?
No, and that is why, and I love that you raised that. If Donald Trump can get elected into office the first damn time, and then he can get reelected the second time,
Harris can
then
run.
Who the hell are you to be sitting there saying shit about somebody like Kamala Harris trying to get into office again, if at all, right? That's my point. I think you just articulated way better than me. There is something, for what it's worth, hate him, which I do, Donald Trump, or love him, which I certainly fucking do not do. There's something very authentic about him.
Yep. He has his
he's
special
authentically
sauce.
fake.
He has his
whatever
special
it
sauce.
is.
Katie, thanks so much for coming on.
He got that special sauce from McDonald's, right? Because he loves his Mickey D's. So there you go.
That's an insult to McDonald's special sauce.
Sorry.
Katie, thanks so much for coming on. This was great, and do come back again.
Thank you for the invitation. It's been a privilege, Andy. Thank you so much.
Alrighty, bye-bye. This episode was produced and edited by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-produced by Maddie Rosenberg and Jen Hammoud for Radio Free Rhinecliff, with additional editing by Maddie Rosenberg, music by Andrew Hollander, and graphic design by Cricket Langell. And with a special thanks to our sponsor, The Epicurean. Again, thanks for listening. Please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the Backroom with Andy Ostroy YouTube channel, where you can watch full videos of our interviews. See you next time.